All right. Well, unfortunately, I don't think my theme song played on that one, but at least you guys got the intro. I'm going to have to figure out what I screwed up today in order to not have the theme song play. But if you guys did hear it, let me know in the comment section. But, anyways, we've got a full show tonight. Welcome to the Maple Pill. As always, I'm your host, Matt McKeever. And essentially, the idea here is we're going to cover all the different news related to Canada. We sometimes go a little bit global as well. And so I want to start things off right off the bat with this is kind of a new update that happened after I put today's show together already. But Chris Barber, who's one of the organizers of the Canadian Freedom Trucker Convoy protests here in Canada, he's been detained or potentially arrested. I heard a couple different hot takes on Twitter, but there's definitely footage of, I forget now whether it was Ottawa police or the RCMP, but essentially him being detained. And again, presumably he's going to be arrested. Before we even get into tonight's show, we're going to touch upon the trucker convoy, updating you guys on some Emergency Act stuff. And then I'm going to take you through the full course of different pills. We'll cover the blue pill, red pill, black pill, clown pill, and finally the white pill. But first of all, I thought it was going to be worthwhile to maybe just chat about, as these coming days or over the next few days, and it's my belief, and I don't think I'm alone in this, we're probably going to see more people arrested. We're probably going to see more bank accounts frozen. We're probably going to see the government, doubling down on their rhetoric and demonizing the protesters, or at least we'll definitely see that from Justin Trudeau and his cronies in the Liberal Party. And what I want to remind you guys is you're not alone. And I know for a lot of us, the last 2 years, we really did feel like we were alone. And that is just beyond unfortunate, in my opinion, because that's exactly what they want. They want you, they want me, they want us to feel alone and isolated and like we're crazy. But one thing I want to highlight for you guys is, the whole point of this show, the Maple Pill, is to walk you through the journey of blue pill to red pill to black pill to clown pill, and then finally white pill. I've almost never heard of someone going from blue pill to red pill and then returning to blue pill, right? I've never heard of someone going from red pill and deciding to go back into the mainstream media. And what I mean by this essentially is once you start to really look at the government, when you start to really dig into the real facts behind what's going on here, not just today, not just over the last 2 years of COVID, but just in general, literally the history of humanity, I've never heard of someone that ended up deciding, you know what? No, actually, the entire world and existence is all rainbows and unicorns. And it turns out the government, the elites, the billionaires, they only have my best interest at heart. They would never do things like, be a pedophile. They would never do things like have a sex island. They would never do things like false flag operations. They would never, torture and kill individuals. And they definitely would never make human sacrifices. And so, again, just want to kind of highlight that because regardless of what plays out over the next few days, understand that a lot of people have been red pilled, black pilled, clown pilled, and white pilled, particularly during this Freedom Trucker Convoy protest, because as we've seen, the mainstream media presents one very curated narrative that ties in perfectly with Justin Trudeau and his administration, whereas what we're seeing from journalists, like citizen journalists, reporters, boots on the ground, seems to be completely different. On the one side, we've got people calling the truckers racist, misogynist, essentially they're Confederates or they're Nazis. And then on the other side, we see bouncy castles and we see them, doing snow shovel or shoveling snow and doing removal of garbage. We see them feeding the homeless. And again, I think it's important to understand that regardless of what comes next, that a lot of people, they're waking up. They're starting to really understand that, hey, we all need to get more involved in not only politics, but as well as just in cultural endeavors, right? We've talked about this multiple times on the channel, but politics is actually downstream from culture. So what happens in the culture eventually dictates what happens in the politics. And it's my personal opinion, but I think that Justin Trudeau really misread this situation. I don't think I'm alone in that opinion, but from my perspective, he certainly misread the situation. I think he's overreacted. Overreaction is probably an understatement, but I think he misjudged where the culture is. I think he thought that they had essentially berated everyone into submission at this point in time. I think they thought they could launch China 2.0 here in Canada. And thankfully, it turns out a lot of us We're not interested in communism. We're not interested in social credit scores. We're not interested in having the government mandate what goes into our bodies. We want to have our individual autonomy. We want to have our individual sovereignty. And regardless of whether they freeze my bank accounts, your bank accounts, whether they try and arrest me or arrest you guys, again, I I think that the damage is done, right? I think that we're seeing the administration crumble here. And now, whether it crumbles over the next few days or whether it takes years for this to play out, again, I just want to say I'm really proud and happy and really proud of what's going on. And I've never been happier to be a Canadian citizen. While I've never been more embarrassed of our government, I've never been happier to be a Canadian. So I really appreciate you guys. But enough of me rambling. Let's jump into today's stories. We're going to start off with some trucker protest updates and Emergency Act updates as well. So this first one here, this is from Zero Hedge. And Canada freezes Convoy bank and crypto accounts, threatens dogs, mainstream media journals, docs donors with hacked materials. And yeah, we live in some very strange times right now. And so I just wanted to highlight a handful of different facts in regards to this article. So the law also allows banks to target for account closure donors to the GoFundMe and the Give Send Go fundraiser campaigns that fueled this protest. Freeland said she wouldn't get into the specifics of whose accounts are being frozen, citing terrorist financing laws. The government has forced crowdfunding websites and payment providers to register with the Financial Transactions and Report Analysis Center of Canada, FinTrack, the government's financial intelligence unit. And I don't believe that this is by accident, that they're not really specifying what's going on. I think the reason they're so cloak and dagger, smoke and mirrors in regards to whose accounts are being frozen, who potentially can be arrested, what is an illegal assembly, and all that jazz is they want that confusion to hopefully just discourage anyone from wanting to speak out, discourage anyone from wanting to stand up for their individual freedoms and personal sovereignty. So again, I think it's important we understand that we're not alone throughout all this. And there's some great Twitter takes in this thread, so I encourage you guys to go check it out if you want. But I really like this one from Ryan Long, the comedian. Bong rip, what if we kill their dogs? And you might think that this is hyperbole, but again, I don't think it is. And this is from the Ottawa bylaw. They actually tweeted this out. Attention animal owners at demonstration. If you are unable to care for your animal as a result of enforcement actions, your animal will be placed into protective care for 8 days at your cost. After 8 days, if arrangements are not made, your animal will be considered relinquished. So again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but really the way I interpret this is they're saying, hey, if we end up arresting you and you can't get your dog within 8 days, the dog now belongs to the state. Who knows what we're going to do to your dog or any of your pets for that matter. But again, it feels like it's specific towards dogs, and then literally showing a photo of it, what I assume is a trucker's dog because there's a dog in a truck cab. So again, it's fascinating how much they want to have the citizenry fear the politicians, fear the police, fear the enforcement officers, and that's all they have at this point in time is fear and lies. Moving on, I also just wanted to highlight this from Sheila Gunn. Sheila Gunn Reid. I thought this was also just absolutely a hilarious take on it. And I thought we'd start off with a little bit of humor because we've got a full course of pills tonight. But Ottawa is a country song. They'll take your dog. They'll take your kids. They'll take your truck. Yeah. Actually, that is a lot of really sad country songs. The only thing here they don't talk about is taking your wife or your girl. But I assume that Justin Trudeau down the road will implement, what was it that started the whole Braveheart movie? The King's Privilege on the first night of marriage. How long until we see that, Mr. Trudeau? Continuing down, here's the counter signal. So this is Keenan. So Freedom Convoy calls on Supreme Court to review Trudeau government. So this is definitely encouraging to see the Freedom Convoy kind of put out a press release or a letter. And this letter really just kind of details in more specifics than anything we've seen up until this point in time, what they expect the government to do. So if you guys want to check out the article and Keenan's take on it, I really encourage you to do so. But I'm just going to highlight page 2 here. It's actually a 3-page document, but on page 2, they highlight in a couple of these bullet points their main goals. So we call upon our governments to restore the rights and freedoms of all Canadians, end all vaccine mandates, end federal, provincial, and municipal vaccine passports, end masking requirements, end all state of emergency declarations pertaining to our peaceful protests, provide financial protection for small businesses harmed by COVID restrictions, respect freedom of choice without discrimination. Furthermore, Canadians want assurance that our governments will not repeat the same mistake again. We propose the following steps to be taken to ensure this. Supreme Court of Canada review of government actions. We need to know whether our rights under the Charter mean anything. We call upon the federal government to initiate a constitutional reference question to the Supreme Court of Canada about the constitutional validity at the COVID laws and restrictions. Number two, a public inquiry of government response to COVID. As a matter of national importance, Canadians call upon the federal government to appoint a fully independent and impartial public inquiry on the government's handling of COVID responses. We need to know what went wrong. What caused governments to so easily trample our rights and freedoms and cause so much harm to our people and our nation? For the inquiry to be effective, the following conditions must be considered. A, the inquiry members are to be selected by an all-party parliamentary process. B, it must contain a thorough examination of the science, internal communications, policy responses, and the consequences. So again, if you guys want to read the entire letter, I encourage you to do so. There's links in the video description down below, as always, to every single thing we're going to cover tonight, because I don't want this to be the end of your fact-finding journey. I really just want this to be the springboard that leads you down your own rabbit holes of information gathering. And then essentially, while this isn't loading for me, this was just a tweet that had all the different pages, so you guys can go download it. And what is going on? Come on, browser. This is from Global News. Ottawa police perimeter checkpoints in place amid major push to oust convoy protesters. So only Ottawans with a lawful reason for being in the downtown core will be permitted to do so amid what police are billing as a major ramp up in efforts to end the so-called Freedom Convoy blockades. All eyes are on the nation's capital as Thursday marks day 21 of the continued blockade, and as police signal that they are preparing to end the demonstration that has paralyzed Ottawa. So, yep, we're getting government checkpoints throughout the city of Ottawa to make sure. As we covered yesterday, we literally saw someone, according to Fox News, get pulled over by 4 different police because they were flying Canadian flags, and that's obviously a suspicious activity at this point in time. And literally, this is where we are, guys. This is from CTV News. Freeland says some protester accounts have been frozen, more to come. And again, I think that they're purposely being very, general in their language here. The reason they're not specifying things is they want to scare and essentially get everyone just to obey. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says financial service providers have already frozen accounts of certain individuals associated with the trucker convoy blockades and protests. Freeland said that while the government is choosing not to provide more detail about the number of accounts suspended, action is being taken and is going to increase in the coming days. Just a little FYI, I shared this on my Instagram stories, but went to the bank earlier today. My accounts aren't frozen yet, so that's good news for me. I definitely pulled out a stack of cash just in case. I'm not trying to start a bank run, but at the same time, I think any freedom-oriented Canadians would likely be wise to at least considering having, a couple months worth of living expenses in cash these days, particularly if you did something as dangerous as, say, like donate $20 to the Freedom Convoy on Give, Send, Go. Now, this is from CBC News. The Coots 13, new details on the men and women arrested at the border blockade. This is a very thorough breakdown of them, their backgrounds, their associations. If you guys want to dive deeper into it, I really encourage you to do so. One little thing that was just interesting to me that I'd never heard of before, they started talking about this diagonal movement. I'd never even heard of the diagonal movement, but when they broke it down for me, I was like, that's interesting. I'm not even sure if I disagree with it. And the idea, at least the way it was summarized here, is the diagonal movement is this idea that the center of North America should break off from the rest of North America to found one country. And so that's essentially from Alaska to Florida, hence the diagonal. Hey, I'd be down with that as long as, Northwestern Ontario gets to be in the center. I don't want to get grouped in with the GTA or New York or California. Moving on here. Now we're going to get into our pills of the day, and we're still going to have more trucker updates throughout tonight's stories because there's just so much going on in regards to it. But this is from iPolitics. Canadian food inflation hits 6.5%. But again, don't worry. While it's no longer transitory, the Bank of Canada is telling us it's going to peak, middle of the year. And if it doesn't, well, they'll change their predictions again, and there'll never be any consequences for them because why should there be? Now, this is from the Toronto Star. Who supports the freedom protesters and why? This is a really telling article, in my opinion, about how they want to frame these protesters. And so they first start off with talking about journalist Hunter S. Thompson and the time he spent following around the Hells Angels for a year and documenting it. They break down his analysis of the Hells Angels and about how they're not just a biker gang. They were a group of people that felt like they were being left behind by society and ostracized and things of that nature. And you guys may or may not know this, but, Hunter S. Thompson is also the guy accused in the Franklin cover-up of, shooting pedophile videos and movies for the elites. So he definitely would have no biases there either. But one thing that really stood out to me near the end here, they're talking about a survey that was done of Canadians. And, I'll read it first and then give you guys my hot take. So, most alarming, 65% of Canadians believe and have believed for more than a decade that if present trend in the concentration of wealth at the very top continues, Canadians may well see violent class conflict. For under 35 Canada, this number rises to 78% agreement and 81% for those who identify as working class. These groups are also being fueled by disinformation, which is clearly a critical factor and closely resembles the disinformation patterns in the US. Now, that's a lot to unpack here, but I love how immediately the Toronto Star is like, oh, it's because like 80% of people under the age of 35 are just stupid. And, they see one meme of disinformation and they automatically believe it. You know what? To be honest, I am technically over 35, but I personally kind of associate with the under 35 still. And if I was to give my hot take on this, I would say, you know what? It's probably more to do with the fact that the under 35 crowd, they actually consume information from a multitude of factors. So they look at citizen journalists. They look at, people on social media and Twitter and influencers of that nature. They also know how to consume mainstream media, but mainstream media isn't their only source of information. And while I know that really pisses off the government and mainstream media because it's so much harder to control your narrative these days, that doesn't inherently mean that we're stupid or naive or being misled by misinformation. In fact, I would argue that a lot of the people under 35 that are paying attention to the news, they're consuming from that multitude of different sources, and they're able to aggregate that and synthesize a much more accurate interpretation of society or reality. Again, understand that this isn't only a narrative coming from memes on Twitter about the potential class conflict or a civil war in the United States or a civil war in North America. We've even got, billionaires like Ray Dalio. I wonder if he's just one of these people that got caught up in disinformation as well. But he's, I believe, pegged it at greater than a 30% chance that in the coming years, we will see some sort of civil war break out in the United States. I don't think that this is an extreme opinion anymore. And in fact, if you want to read a lot into my actions, you can maybe start to think, that's interesting that Matt moved away from large metropolitan areas. That's interesting that Matt wanted to make sure he lived at least, a 4, 5, 6 hour drive from any large population centers. Why does Matt call his new place the Citadel? Again, maybe I'm just one of those silly, misinformed individuals, or maybe I'm actually doing a lot of due diligence and research and trying to protect myself, me, mine, and ours, as I often talk about. Now, this is from CTV News. And essentially here's what's reopening and when in Ontario's province speeds up reopening. So with the government flip-flopping so quickly these days, if you're confused about what the hell's going on, I don't blame you. So this is a pretty handy list of kind of what kind of changed on February 17th, which if I remember is today, and what's going to be changing March 1st. But at the same time, I think it's important for you guys to understand you're likely a lot freer than you believe, or certainly you're a lot freer than the government would ever allow you to believe. For example, today I was in at CIBC Bank withdrawing some cash with no mask. I didn't get tackled. No one berated me. I'm just smiling, and I assume that the people behind the counter are smiling as well, but I can't tell because of their face diaper. But again, you're a lot freer than you realize. essentially outside of airports now and the post office, because the post office is very ornery about that. Those are pretty much the only places that you're going to find me wearing a mask. Now, this is from the National Post. So Toronto bracing for spring tornado market. And again, I'm not going to rehash a lot of what's covered in here, but if you guys aren't paying attention, real estate continues to go up, and the mainstream media and the Bank of Canada are trying to find any and all reasons to explain this away, other than terrible monetary policy and fiat monetary policy in Canada. But again, in my opinion, until you fix the money, you're not going to fix our real estate market or cycle. Next, this is from the Globe and Mail. Our protests are a weak copy of Europe's. We should learn from their response. So I encourage you guys to check this out. And I guess the one thing I'll highlight here is it's fascinating to see how the mainstream media in North America is portraying the Canadian freedom protesters here, the Freedom Convoy. But at the same time, we're seeing the Canadian government step in, enact the Emergencies Act. Meanwhile, every single weekend that I pay attention at all to what's going on in Europe, whether it happens to be in like Germany one weekend, Belgium the next, and Austria, in France multiple times, you see these crazy protests where things are actually getting quite violent. And yet, to the best of my knowledge, those governments haven't started freezing protesters' bank accounts. They haven't made assemblies illegal yet. So again, it's just fascinating to see the disparity in coverages here. You'll almost never see it even covered in the mainstream media in North America in regards to the European protests. And, you know, I've seen stuff, again, it seems like it's kind of died off in the UK because the UK is really curtailing a lot of their COVID measures already. But back when they were still pushing hard on the COVID narrative, we saw lots of crazy protests going on there. And again, the mainstream media, the BBC, were completely oblivious and blind to it. And essentially never covered it. And one thing that's interesting is that Doug Sanders here, the author of this, he essentially goes on and talks about how Europe is doubling down on their COVID restrictions. I'm just like, that's interesting because you're clearly getting your news from different places than me. Because when I look at Sweden, when I look at the Netherlands, when I look at the UK, I see them opening up, or like, you know, Sweden literally has been open up essentially the entire time, or at least allowing individual autonomy for their citizenry. So again, it's just fascinating how they focus on just cherry picking a couple of the countries. But even it seems like we're starting to see now a bit of a cracking in like Germany's posturing in regards to COVID-19. But again, that's my hot take. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Let me know what you're seeing in the comment section. I know we've got people that kind of tune in from across the globe. Now, this is from CBC News. I fled my country to find freedom in Canada. Let's not lose sight of what freedom really means. And so this is a former political exile from Chile. And so I just found this really fascinating. Again, it's hard for me not to get blackpilled on some of these stories, but I'll read her comments and then give you guys my take. I never thought that I would see what is taking place here in Canada right now. People are occupying main streets, speeding through the streets in residential areas, honking nonstop and showing obscenities at people who are wearing masks, intimidation and provocation, and with it, the motors idling and horns honking nonstop are all methods of torture that make it impossible to stay calm or sleep. This is on top of 2 years of doing what we can to survive the pandemic. Later on in the article, she highlights today protesters are occupying our nation's capital and blocking border crossings. They're demanding freedom, but I can't see what freedom they've lost. They are doing whatever they want, and they have not faced any consequences so far. I can't help but just say this is complete fucking bullshit. One, if you're comparing what's going on in Ottawa right now to torture, I'm going to guess that you've never heard about like CIA black sites or what goes down in Gitmo, or, you know, go back to like World War II and look at all the crazy torture that went on there. Secondly, to say that we've lost no freedoms is complete bullshit. Right now, I can't get on a plane, a train, or a bus. Right now, I can't cross the border. Right now, I can't go into a restaurant and sit down and have a meal. Right now, I couldn't go and watch kids play hockey or go into a sports arena myself. Those are a lot of things I'm being excluded from in society. We have absolutely lost a lot of freedoms. Right now, every day I check my bank account to see if my bank account's been frozen. This is asinine. And honestly, at this point in time, like I'm past defund the CBC. Like, I just, God damn it. Why do my tax dollars go to these people? Continuing on, this is from the Toronto Sun, and we're going to get into a red pill now. So a Confederate flag in their barracks. And this was just kind of interesting. They're talking about Canada's anti-terrorism unit and how they had a Confederate flag there. And it turns out a few of the anti-terrorism unit soldiers or members in Canada actually attended the protest. It should come as no surprise that 2 members of Canada's crack anti-terrorism unit are under investigation for participating in the Freedom Convoy that still litters Ottawa's downtown, despite the Emergencies Act. So again, if you guys want a little bit more background on this unit of anti-terrorism in Canada, I encourage you to check out the article and link in the video description down below. But such elements were not exercised from the rally and thus attracted a faction of the young, rough, and ready soldiers connected to the Elite Joint Task Force 2 unit, or JTF2. And it's kind of interesting here how they're saying that the protesters were racist and that attracted the racist soldiers. Couldn't it be that maybe it's almost the opposite? But again, I'm honestly, I'm just tired of talking about how there was like one Confederate flag, one Nazi flag, and that immediately means that thousands, tens of thousands of protesters are racist. It's so hard to even have a legitimate discussion at this point in time because it's very clear that, you know, the blue check marks on Twitter, that the mainstream media, that the people that only consume mainstream media literally live in an echo chamber and never consider any other point of view. Now, this is from True North. Bakery facing threats and harassment over leaked convoy donations. This is just another example of essentially the backlash occurring against Canadians that donated to the peaceful protest here in Canada. And honestly, I've yet to hear any Liberals or NDP or Bloc come out and denounce this action, right? Have we even heard the government denounce the hacking of Give, Send, Go? And we're going to get into the hacker later on and how I think he's probably a glowy, but we'll cover that in a clown pill. Now, this is from the Toronto Sun. Trudeau minister threatens to seize accounts of pro-Trump convoy donors. David Lamenti was questioned about whether people who made donations to the trucker convoy will have their accounts seized. And honestly, the joy that these people have talking about this, I truly believe that they should be ashamed and embarrassed of themselves and that there should be consequences once this fiasco is over. But let's literally hear him tell you it.
Look, you've just compared people who may have donated to this to the same people who are funding maybe a terrorist. I just want to be clear here, sir. This is really important. A lot of folks say, look, I just don't like your vaccine mandates and I donated to this. Now it's illegal. Should I be worried that the bank can freeze my account? What's your answer to that?
Well, I think if you are a member of a pro-Trump movement who's donating hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to this kind of thing, then you ought to be worried.
So literally, if you're pro-Trump as a Canadian citizen, you should be fearful now. Like, we're literally seeing the administration, the federal government, just attack their political opponents. What is wrong about being pro-Trump? Again, I'm not going to make him out to be a hero or a saint or anything like that. Again, the only politician that I even really care for is Ron Paul, and he's now retired, unfortunately. Turns out you can't just be a politician forever. Although if there was one politician that would never have a term limit that I'd be okay with, it would be Ron Paul. But understand that, like, they're literally demonizing people that wore Trump hats or have a Trump flag. Again, he was president just a little bit ago, and I don't want to get deleted off Twitter here, or off of YouTube and social media, but like, do your own research into what went down on election night and come to your own conclusions, rather than just swallowing what the mainstream media tries to force down your throat. Now, this is from National Post. First reading, the ugly witch hunt for federal convoy donors. And it absolutely is an ugly witch hunt that we're seeing right now. And what I want to highlight is just a few of the examples they break out here in the article. And again, we're seeing massive backlash, and that's why I'm encouraging you guys, if you're so inclined, go support the people that support the truckers, because it's unconscionable, in my opinion, that we're literally seeing people that donated like $25, $100, $1,000 to the convoy, having their name and their businesses smeared in the mainstream media, while also being threatened by the government of having their bank accounts frozen. And I understand, if you get your bank account frozen right now, You've got no recourse. You've got no timeline to understand when it's going to come back. This will absolutely destroy those small businesses that supported Canadians' right to protest before the government made it illegal. And I understand, literally, again, we're talking about people that this is essentially like retroactively making it illegal, right? They're not talking about people that donate from this point forward, the moment the Emergencies Act was enacted. They're talking about anyone that donated throughout this entire process. Ottawa's Stella Luna Gelato Cafe had to close its doors after owners Tammy Gulani was found to have given $250 to the Convoy on February 5th. I'm a sucker for a grassroots cause, she said. Gulani said that the cafe has since been hit with calls threatening to pitch bricks through the window or otherwise come and get us. People have been boycotting David's Tea amid word that its founder, the David, was a Freedom Convoy donor. There's just a couple problems. David Siegel hasn't been involved with David's Tea since 2006, and the $200 donation was from his wife. A staffer for Ontario Solicitor General, Sylvia Jones, has been fired for allegedly having her name tied to a $100 donation to the Convoy. Purdy Natural in London, Ontario, reported that its online pages have been barraged with hate just because Convoy supporters bought some of their gift bags to give to protesters. It brought quite a bit of hateful behavior toward us from people, sadly. Literally, we've seen more hate in the last couple of days during this doxing and this leak of donors than we saw throughout the entire protest. And yet, again, you barely see any coverage in mainstream media. So again, link to this article in the video description down below if you want to dive deeper into it. Now what I want to hit upon here, this is from Zero Hedge. If Russia invites Bitcoin adoption, the global arms race will begin. And so this is kind of just basic game theory, but once we start to see larger, countries and national states getting into Bitcoin, it's going to create a bum rush afterwards because everyone else is going to try and dogpile in because no one wants to be the last one to adopt what hopefully becomes the new future reserve currency. One of the justifications from the ministry, as noted here, has been that Bitcoin mining incentivizes great increases in energy generation while allowing for rapid pivoting of demand by the grid. This means that if energy demand were to shift quickly, say in the wake of unorthodox weather situations, then the grid has the capacity to limit or shut down miners with the intent of supplying energy demand where it's most pertinent. And yeah, this is 100% true. If you guys want to understand and essentially debunk all the energy scare and the Bitcoin's not good for the planet bullshit, I encourage you to follow Nick Carter on Twitter. Nick does some amazing essays and breakdowns. He's done some fantastic interviews as well. Secondly, this places pressure on Western powers. The US, the United Kingdom, and the European Union have been slow to make concrete decisions on Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining facilitation, which isn't surprising in the least. Not only does Bitcoin censorship, resistance, and decentralization threaten the feasibility of the SWIFT system, but they also make controls over capital flight much more difficult to enforce. Yeah, whoever controls the currency essentially controls the country, and that's why we should all be very upset that we've got a fiat currency controlled by central bankers that aren't even voted in to power. But again, link to that entire article in the video description down below. This is from National Post. John Iverson, Trudeau oblivious to Canadians lose faith in government's ability to keep peace and order. The most worrying finding in the poll is that a third of Canadians take the view that if elected leaders will not protect their values, they and others will have to do it themselves. Honestly, I find it more worrying that 2/3 of Canadians are like, oh, if the government doesn't, protect my values and my rights, then I'm just going to kind of shrug and accept it. That is way more worrying to me than the fact that, hey, 1/3 of Canadians are like, my values are my values. And regardless of how much you gaslight me, regardless of how much you demonize me, I'm going to stand up for my morals and ethics. Because that's literally how it should be. Moving on here, this is from another one from the National Post. Rex Murphy, Trudeau's monumentally misguided emergency measures are an insult to Canadians. I don't always agree with Rex, but I think he's got some great points here in this article, so I encourage you guys to check it out. Now, I just wanted to highlight, this is a tweet here from Coors Truckin'. Remember 2 years ago? 6 weeks of blockaded rail lines, 60-plus ships awaiting unloading at both East and West Coast, Quebec in dire need of propane, which couldn't be shipped via rail due to blockades, sabotage, fires, thousands laid off, food necessities shortages, CN sued. Also, remember, the crazy protests and destruction of the actual desecration of statues, right? And then we've got literally what occurred recently with bouncy castles. So a link to that in the video description down below if you guys want to check it out. But let's move on to the black pill. The Ukraine mirage. Biden to take credit for stopping his own manufactured crisis. And this is probably going to be the most frustrating thing of this entire Ukraine debacle. No matter how it plays out, we're going to see the Biden administration take credit for it. So if they end up finally getting the war they want in Ukraine, they're going to say, see, I told you there's going to be a war. And we're going to be like, well, just because you cause a war doesn't mean that there was going to be a war. And secondly, if no war occurs, they'll say, see, we had to act tough. We had to essentially warmonger and fearmonger in order to make sure Putin didn't invade Ukraine. Literally, they're trying to set themselves up for a win-win no matter what. But I did want to highlight this article about Ukraine from Zero Hedge. And so it's simply titled, "We Are Not Useful Idiots." In any event, at the very center of the crisis in Washington claim that the rule of law and the sanctity of sovereign borders are on the line in Ukraine, and that, therefore, Russia must not be allowed to encroach a single inch into sacrosanct Ukrainian territory. That is to say, it is not a matter of America's national security interest in the precise Ukrainian geography, which happens to lie cheek by jowl on Russia's border, but the very governance of the entire planet. Conform to the rule of law as articulated by Washington, or get sanctioned, outlawed, pariahed, even invaded if worse comes to worse. We hear this refrain repeatedly from C.C. Blinky and national security advisors like Snake Sullivan, but we find ourselves doubled over with laughter each time, knowing practically by heart the list of coups, regime change plots, invasions, and occupations Washington has foisted upon other sovereign nations over the past 70 years. For want of doubt, however, we recently Googled in pursuit of the exact list and came up with a systematic study by a young scholar named Lindsay A. O'Rourke. Here's her summary conclusion. Between 1947 and 1989, the United States tried to change other nations' governments 72 times. That's a remarkable number. It includes 66 covert operations and 6 overt ones. Most covert efforts to replace another country's government failed. During the Cold War, for instance, 26 of the United States covert operations successfully brought a U.S.-backed government to power. The remaining 40 failed. I found 16 cases in which Washington sought to influence foreign elections by covertly funding, advising, and spreading propaganda for its preferred candidates, often doing so beyond a single election cycle. Of these, the U.S.-backed parties won their elections 75% of the time. My research found that after a nation's government was toppled, it was less democratic and more likely to suffer civil war, domestic instability, and mass killing. At the very least, citizens lost faith in their governments. Yeah. Again, no one's hands are perfectly clean when we look at history, but I think we can all say that the CIA and the essentially the war machine, right, going on in the United States, that has some of the bloodiest hands that we've seen since World War II, straight up. Moving on, though, let's hit upon the Ron Paul Institute here. So the January 6th pipe bombs look like another FBI hoax. And again, depending upon how black-pilled you already are, this is maybe no surprise, or this could come as a real shock. Politico recently reported that Kamala Harris was inside the DNC headquarters at the same time the explosive sat outside the building. Harris, who inexplicably left the Capitol around 11:30 a.m. on January 6th after attending an intelligence briefing, choosing not to participate as a U.S. senator in the certification of her own historical election, was evacuated out of the DNC headquarters by the Secret Service at 1:14 p.m., several minutes after Capitol Police inspected the building after the RNC bomb was found. That shocking revelation means one of two things. The Secret Service, in a security sweep of the DNC building and exterior grounds prior to her arrival, missed what the FBI insists was a visible explosive device, a scenario that seems deeply unlikely considering the city was in a state of heightened alert and agents presumably would be extra cautious, or the FBI is lying. FBI lying, that seems impossible, right? Next, again, this is from the Ron Paul Institute. They're really just coming hard with our black pills today, but corporate vaccine mandates and vaccine passports brought to you by BlackRock and Vanguard. So if you're not familiar with BlackRock and Vanguard, I encourage you guys to do some research. They're two of the three largest asset managers in the world. They literally control trillions of dollars in assets. And when you start to look at some of the companies they control, it's interesting because a lot of the big companies they control are also the companies that are still insisting that their employees be vaccinated. And also these like BlackRock and Vanguard also have huge stakes in the pharmaceutical companies, which benefit from vaccine mandates. But a lot of the large companies they control happen to also be the ones that are forcing vaccines on their employees, despite the fact that we saw the Biden administration's push for it being knocked down previously. Now, this is from the True North, and this is going to get us into our clown pills for today. So, self-described cyber terrorist takes credit for illegal GiveSendGo data breach. If you guys want to see someone that appears to be truly unhinged, I encourage you to watch this video. I'm not even going to waste our time watching it. I don't know if he did it or if he didn't do it. If he did do it, I hope that he's punished, right, according to the laws that we have. But just the way that we've heard nothing from our federal government, from Justin Trudeau, in regards to denouncing this hack, and the fact that they're literally now using this hack and the information from it to go after their political opponents, kind of makes me suspicious of whoever hacked GiveSendGo. And if it turns out it was this dude, can't help but feel like he's probably a glowy, or more likely, he's probably going to be a patsy, hiding the fact that maybe it was a government actor that did it. But again, maybe I'm just too black-pilled. But again, link to that in the video description down below. Now, this is a double clown pill. It's rare we get two clown pills in one story, but I couldn't help but find this humorous. So welcome to Global News Cannabis Content. To continue on to this cannabis-related content, you must confirm you are of legal age. And so I literally got to put in my date of birth and select my province for an article that essentially is just talking about how over half a pound of cannabis was found in the Collins Bay Kingston Penitentiary. So again, I've seen far worse on Global News than reading an article about how half a pound of cannabis was found in one of the Canadian prisons. And yet this is where they age restrict me. So I can go and read articles about, the dangerous insurrection and the occupation of Ottawa, because there's actually nothing scary about that. But if I want to read about cannabis, I need to prove my age. Just we live in the clown timeline, people. And speaking of the clown timeline, this is from CTV News. Unvaccinated truckers delivering vaccines, COVID-19 devices exempt from border rules. So this brings up a whole host of questions. I'm just going to hit them real high level here. But essentially, wait, I thought you were telling us that it was just a fringe minority of truckers and that 90% or more of truckers were already vaccinated, so there's really no issue. And so it's no big deal to our supply chain that unvaccinated truckers can't cross the border. But now I'm hearing that unvaccinated truckers are needed in order to get COVID-19 devices across the border. Something about that equation doesn't really add up. Next, on the clown pills, I want to highlight Elon Musk tweet meme comparing Justin Trudeau to Hitler over Ottawa trucker convoy protest. And this was from the title that I put on today. You guys maybe saw the meme in the thumbnail for today's video. But essentially, he put out a tweet that showed Hitler saying, "Don't compare me to Justin Trudeau. I had a budget." That technically is factually true. Hitler did have budgets when he was doing all his evil shit, where our prime minister hasn't had budgets during COVID-19. But again, you don't really need to worry because as he's told us in the past, budgets balance themselves. You silly goose, you thinking that, the government should be responsible in its spending and printing. And then I want to highlight this from Viva Fry. Your leader, Justin Trudeau, dressed in blackface multiple times, groped a reporter, was twice convicted of ethics violations, prorogued Parliament to stifle investigations. You support Trudeau, you hypocrite. You have no business lecturing anyone on Canadian values. And this was from essentially a member of Parliament who was calling out Elon Musk, saying that he found it shocking. It was quite frankly shocking, his comparison of Trudeau to Hitler in a meme. Yeah, Elon Musk, you better be careful. Canadian government may come and try and freeze your bank account soon. And then this is the actual meme in case you guys missed it. So stop comparing me to Justin Trudeau. Hopefully it loads here for me. But essentially he's saying, oh, yeah, I guess it got cut off here, but I had a budget. And what I found particularly interesting was this is from another blue check mark on Twitter. Times Person of the Year, he's referring to Elon Musk, just casually posting Hitler memes. Who wants to tell him that Hitler also was Times Man of the Year back in the day? Yeah. Clown world. Now, this is from Post Millennial. This is going to get us into our first white pill story of the day. Watch North Carolina dad slam school board over critical race theory and gender indoctrination. And definitely, I'm so glad to see parents fighting out against this bullshit. And again, if you think that CRT is harmless, you just need to do more research. I don't know what else to tell you.
Discrimination resolution, the CRT deal, because it's happening. And as a parent, I speak to other parents. There's a few things that we don't want. I'm biracial, I'm bilingual, I'm multicultural. The fact is, in America, in North Carolina, I can do anything I want, and I teach that to my children. And the person who tells my little pecan colored kids that they're somehow oppressed based on the color of their skin would be absolutely wrong and absolutely at war with me. And I think that's the same for every parent. What the mask showed us is that the parents, the most powerful group of people in our country, that they're taking back the wheel. Now, obviously, we had to take the wheel back for the mask, but we're taking the wheel back from Washington all the way to Raleigh and into our local school board. Because CRT, all of that, the parents don't want it. It's a big fat lie. There's not one if you believe in CRT, I want to tell you you're a liar, because that means you look at your black neighbor and say that they're oppressed, and you look at your white neighbor and say that they're evil, regardless of the experience that you've had with them. And we're not going to do that. The parents in the United States of America, right here in North Carolina and Cabarrus County, we know that's not true because we believe the lives we live. The fact is, I've been a business owner right here in North Carolina, and I deal with white people, black people, Hispanic people. My children deal with everybody. And the racism is only happening at the government level and on the media. The fact is, you have racists, and there's like, you can't even find them hardly. You just hear the stories about them. But this is what we're dealing with. The parents are taking the wheel. I have an 8-year-old daughter who is absolutely dynamic, who can do anything. Athletically, intellectually, spiritually, and emotionally, she is a dynamo. And I don't want a man swimming against her in the pool. The fact is, I don't want her playing against boys in soccer. I don't even let my sons rough her up. Do you think I'm going to let your son rough her up? This is what we're talking about. Policy going back to the parents. Because if you think people who love America are willing to fight for it, you haven't met parents yet. Because I'm telling you, parents will go further down any street than anyone who loves their country alone. My name is Brian.
This dude is based as fuck, and definitely we need more parents speaking out like this brave gentleman did. And again, I hope he eventually finds himself on the school board, because if I had children, that's who I'd want on the school board. Someone that's thinking very, very logically, very realistically, unlike the story we covered yesterday, right, where we were talking about San Francisco, where they had no interest in getting rid of mask mandates, no interest in implementing in-school teaching again, but they were focused on renaming 44 schools during COVID because of problematic people like Abraham Lincoln. So again, love that, and I hope to see more parents doing that. Now, this next story arguably, and I'm going to be in the way for it, but this story arguably could be a black pill or a white pill or a clown pill, but I was kind of light on white pill, so I'm going to count it as a white pill. And so this is essentially Moderna. Not sure if you've been watching their stock. I'm kind of in the way there, but you can see it peak there, and you can see how low it is right now. They're 70% off of their all-time high, which is a good thing. And I look forward to seeing them continuing to lose market value as people continue to question the effectiveness and the reasonability of things like vaccine mandates, which essentially, as we covered in yesterday's FDA leak from Project Veritas, show that, these vaccine companies are just focused on having reoccurring revenue indefinitely. And if you guys want to go down a real black pill rabbit hole, Edward Dowd, former BlackRock portfolio manager, he's saying that Pfizer and FDA fraud, financial collapse is imminent. So again, I'm not saying that this is the case, but if you guys want to watch that video, there's a link in the video description down below. And he definitely doesn't mince words. And he says that this isn't the first this isn't the first fraud or Ponzi scheme we've seen. He highlights a few of them in the past. So again, if you guys want to check that out. Now I want to highlight this opinion piece from the National Post. Could Trudeau's emergency bring Canadians together in opposition? Yes, I 100% agree. I think that we're going to see more people radicalized in wanting to have their own individual autonomy and personal freedom. I think we're going to see more people be like, wait, you just froze my neighbor's bank account because he donated to protesters? Yeah, I think that we're honestly going to see more people siding with the average man here, right? And again, I think this is a great article. I encourage you guys to go give it a read. But we're going to keep rolling because it's already been my original intentions were these were going to be 45-minute shows with 15 minutes Q&A, but there's so much news and there's so much to be frustrated by that I can't help myself sometimes. But enough of the white pill. Let's move on to a couple memes of the day. So this first one I really loved. Fix the money, fix the world. And so we've probably all seen these memes where essentially there's the dude with the whip and a group of people standing up to him. Then essentially as he raises the whip, everyone bows down. But we've got Satoshi Nakamoto, who, the anon that founded Bitcoin. And then we've got the Bitcoiners or the Bitcoin maxis starting to stand up. And then finally, Bitcoin mass adoption. And if we fix the money, we will fix the world. We live in a fiat society. And so literally, I can't help but feel like all of the corruption, all the bullshit we see stems in large part, if not completely, from the fiat monetary policies we have, right? The reason that people don't value their health is because you can't value your dollar. The reason people don't think long-term, the reason so many people can't get past the marshmallow test is because they know their dollar is going to depreciate. They know their dollar is worthless, right? They know that something's wrong with the money. And that creates all sorts of high time preferences, right? Where when you've got sound money, when you've got Bitcoin, you actually end up with low time preferences, which allows individuals to think long-term, to build, to want to create, rather than just be parasites off the existing system. And then I want to also highlight this other fantastic meme. War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. 100% agree with this. I've got no interest in a war in Ukraine, but I absolutely know who my enemy is. And right now, it's not Putin. Maybe someday it will be, but today it's not. Right now, my enemy is Justin Trudeau. It's people that want to take away my individual autonomy. It's people that want to demonize me, to call me a racist, a misogynist, to want to call me a Nazi or a Confederate sympathizer, or all the other hosts of crazy things they've thrown at us. The people that want to destroy small businesses simply because they donated to a group of protesters. People that want to scare you. People that want to take your animals, your kids away from you, your means of living away from you. Those are my enemy. Not some dude in Russia or some dude in Ukraine. Again, that's not to make little of their situation. And I certainly hope we see no violence occur over there. But that's not my problem. That's not my problem today, and that's not my enemy today. So as always, appreciate you guys engaging in the comment section. I'm going to pull up the comments here real quick. We'll hit upon a few of them. And again, always love the fact that you guys are, smashing the like button, sharing this on social media, because we know big tech's going to do me no favors. And I really do love getting your 2 cents and your opinions on these subject matters. And again, a reminder, we've got the Problems or Profits Discord. So if you guys want to dive, deeper into this, if you want to find a community of like-minded individuals, if you want to say things that you can't say on social media because you're going to get, deleted or put in Twitter jail, that's a great community to go do those things. And again, we're very focused on, truth, authenticity, transparency, but then also focusing on what can we control and how can we better our own personal situations. What's up, Peter? We've got Kyle O'Connor in the chat. We've got Al back. Aislin's here as well. Al says, I never thought that a real estate professional would get me this excited to watch the evening news. I appreciate that, Al. Honestly, I get so excited to do these shows these days because now, rather than me just like every now and then ranting at Peter or Adam Martin about what's going on in the world, or me having my family just tell me, they don't want to hear it, at least now I can kind of share my thoughts and opinions with individuals that are willing to think for themselves. I'm not saying you guys need to agree with me. Hell, you can hate watch this for all I care. But understand that I am trying to be truthful. I am trying to be transparent. And any bias I have, I think it comes through clearly, right? I'm not claiming to be purely independent, right? I value liberty. I value the pursuit of happiness. I'm all about that that Constitution that the U.S. founders put together. It's a beautiful document. The Declaration of Independence is a wonderful piece of art that should be read by everyone. And again, I think that meritocracy, that through real capitalism, we can actually, see almost unlimited abundance in society. And it's really unfortunate that we're so gaslit into believing it's the exact opposite. Kyle O'Connor says, "Hey, Matt, I think you're great doing what you do, but why are you not blackpilled on Bitcoin? John McAfee calls Bitcoin a surveillance and tracking system. You must know who John McAfee is." Yeah, definitely familiar with him. I'll encourage you guys to go and watch yesterday's video if you didn't watch it, where we kind of break down how to go about making your Bitcoin private. Now, again, can Bitcoin transactions be tracked in the ledger? Absolutely. Can they be obfuscated? Absolutely. Can you stay anon in regards to your Bitcoin? Absolutely. Is it easy? Well, it's not as easy as not being anonymous when it comes to Bitcoin. But understand that also what I'm trying to break down here for most people, like less than 1% of people, I believe, still have used or interacted with Bitcoin, right? So I'm like, if you guys are already deep into Bitcoin, you're running your own node, you know how to do non-KYC, and you decided you wanted to get into other privacy coins for whatever reason, cool, awesome, you do you, fantastic. You're not the majority of people that I'm trying to convince to start taking their financial sovereignty seriously. Again, for me, I believe in Bitcoin. I believe in the community that's around it. And I believe that, through layer 2 or like the lightning layer or through other layers, that we can achieve all kinds of amazing things. I also think through like closed systems or closed economies, there's lots of opportunities for individuals to essentially never almost have to participate with anyone outside of their cluster. So for those reasons and a multitude of others, I'm not blackpilled on Bitcoin. But again, if you guys are deep down that rabbit hole and you decide to do something else, awesome. I've got no qualms with that. Al says, I understood McAfee's points on BTC, and some of them were legitimate points of concern, but McAfee was a horrible track record on integrity and human decency. He's definitely got a checkered past. We need to... oh, no, that's not appropriate. Again, please try and keep the comment section clean and appropriate, guys. I've got no interest in that sort of bullshit in my comment section. Gene says, to be as inhuman as they are, one theory which have to be taken into account is they live in a documentary, not a movie. I'm not sure what that's in regards to, but appreciate you sharing your perspective. Ian says, here. Nope, we're not covering that, dude. Okay. Kyle says, Bitcoin has zero privacy. There is a Bitcoin PSYOP ongoing, and shilling for Bitcoin for affiliate links is a disservice to your viewers, Matt. Mad respect, though. I completely disagree with you, Kyle. And again, that's fine for you to disagree with me. I really don't think that I'm shilling for affiliate links. Like, yes, there is a Shakepay link in my video description. Yes, I do think Shakepay is the easiest way for someone to first start dabbling with Bitcoin. Do I honestly think that someone that's never touched cryptocurrency is immediately going to jump into privacy coins or other means? No, I don't think so. And I understand the vast majority of people, based upon my understanding, that buy things like Monero or Zcash, their on-ramp still usually goes through Bitcoin. So again, if you've got fantastic resources that really break it down, I'm happy to consume them. But my humble opinion, again, is that I'm not trying to get people to do perfect. I'm trying to get them started here, right? The same idea of the way I lay out the different pills here for you guys. Depending upon where you're at on your journey, you might really just be into the blue pills, and you might almost want to drop off the stream once I start going down the red and black and clown pills. That's okay. Again, it takes time for people to completely reinterpret their interpretation of reality, right? It's not an easy journey going through this, and I want everyone to know they're not alone. Lynn Elizabeth says the Charter of Rights means nothing if it can be ignored so easily. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Again, we need to be ever vigilant if we want our freedoms to actually exist. Carolyn says you're concerned about your finances with scum prime minister's orders. Yeah, I absolutely am, Carolyn, and we've talked about that a couple times. And you cannot access a Bitcoin wallet. LOL. I'm not sure what that means, but you absolutely, if you've got your Bitcoin in self-storage, the government can't just like lock you out the way they can with a bank account. Jean says the thing is with crypto is a blink of an eye, it can be worth nothing. I'm a crypto miner investor. If USA or EU ban the use of the mining, the price will crash. If Dow Jones crash, crypto will crash too. Yeah, so certainly there's a lot of volatility still with Bitcoin, but I've yet to understand a better option, right? People are like, buy land. Dude, it's so much easier for the government to seize your land. Buy gold and silver. Again, way easier for them to seize that than Bitcoin that's in self-custody. As well, it's a lot easier to cross borders in an inconspicuous manner with Bitcoin because in theory, you just need your seed phrase and your address, and you don't even need to like technically carry the hardware wallet, depending upon exactly how you got your Bitcoin set up. Al says, Matt, I don't like the blue pill stories because they feel like a suppository. Oh, that's funny. In France, since August, around 2 million on 65 million protests of 65 million protests every Saturday. Saw footage of middle range town, 14,000, and it's like everybody is in the protest. Yeah, it's been really interesting how little that seems to be covered in mainstream media in Canada. We've got pardon all the profanity. It was all instantaneous emotional emphasis. No problem. Oh, that's in regards to this one. Man, fact that bullshit, Chilean. My parents escaped tyranny, and they say to me that they're seeing it again in Trudeau. That was a bullshit story with bullshit comments. That's definitely my take on it. And again, like the thing is, I'm not trying to say that Canada is literally Germany in 1942. Right? I'm not trying to say that this is the worst tyranny that we see right now going on in the world. Because in fact, you could look at China where the Olympics are being held, and we can look at the Uyghur Muslims where, depending upon who you talk to, 1 to 2 million people are literally in concentration camps and re-education camps and things of that nature. So I'm not trying to say that Canada is on par with the atrocities that, say, the CCP are committing. However, what I'm saying is I never even wanted to get close. I don't even want to ever have a serious conversation about real comparisons between Canada and the CCP or Canada and Nazi Germany or Canada and any other tyranny. In fact, I only want to see Canada become more freer. I've got no interest in seeing any erosions of individual freedoms. And it doesn't matter how much safety you promise me. I want to make the individual risk-reward calculation for myself because only I can really understand what the hell's going on up in here. And that's the case for all of us, right? I believe that I'm an individual, not just a part of a collection. We've got Kyle. Jean Francis is right about how the rug can be pulled out of both crypto and the stock market. Tether prints crypto dollars just like our fiat overlords do. Silver and gold is God's true currency. Again, I'm not saying that you need to be 100% into Bitcoin, guys, but I think that you're doing yourself a disservice if you're completely writing it off. But again, if you'd rather just stack gold and silver, nothing off of my back. Again, anything to get you away from the fiat system, I think is a wise choice. But again, having some stuff that the government can't easily seize is also wise. So, if you're holding that gold as paper gold, I think that that's a poor decision. If you're holding that gold in safety deposit boxes, again, I don't think that that's optimal. And if it's all under your bid, well, I hope that, it's really messy under your bed, so it's hard for someone to find it if they were to search your home. All right. Awesome. Appreciate all the chats, guys. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here on Bitcoin, but again, we can do a whole special episode down the road about it. I agree with that. You can't compare China with El Salvador. But again, appreciate you guys chatting so much in here. Oh, we got Bazamatic. Any chance a clause plan was to force everyone into BTC after threatening to freeze traditional accounts? I'm willing to say anything's possible. At this point in time, I'm literally willing to interpret reality however the facts come to me. That being said, there's only so much that they could do, right? So like if there was a giant global conspiracy to drive people into Bitcoin, best case scenario, they're Satoshi, they've got 1 million plus Bitcoins, and they essentially control, 5% of that economy. Maybe through other proxies and other whatevers, they control another, let's double it and say they control 10%. Let's, whatever, quadruple it and say they own 20%. But again, arguably, that's still less of the overall monetary supply than they control under a fiat system, right? It also is hard for them to exponentially increase it. Now, again, like things like Tether are interesting rabbit holes to go down. Could Tether be responsible for Bitcoin being overvalued compared to probably where the market would price it otherwise? Absolutely, I'm open to that interpretation. But I still think that it's a oversimplification to simply want to completely write off Bitcoin. And then if you're going completely write off Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies and privacy coins and stuff like that, again, my biggest question is like, what is your portable form of wealth? And so, to me, the absolute most portable form of wealth is literally your social connections, your network, your reputation. But next to that is Bitcoin. And after that, it probably is things like gold and silver. And then after that, there's not much that's really portable, in my opinion. I know people will say things like fine art or jewelry or watches, and those things may be cool or pretty to look at, but it's hard for me to fully swallow that perspective. Awesome. Well, again, appreciate you guys hanging out with me on Thursday night. Hope you enjoyed this live stream. And again, always appreciate hearing your perspectives and thoughts. It seems like based upon at least the active commenters, we'll have to do a whole separate episode on Bitcoin. And again, feel free to share resources in regards to how you formed your opinion or your perspective in the Maple Pill Discord channel. You can find it Problems or Profits Discord, link in the video description down below. And otherwise, appreciate you guys. Hope you have a good Thursday. Remember, you're not alone. They want you to feel scared, isolated, alone. And regardless of how these next few days play out, I think a lot of common knowledge has been generated through these protests. Again, I've never been prouder to be a Canadian and never been more ashamed of our government. It's a weird dichotomy, but here we are. And I'm going to play out my little intro song, although it's probably not going to play the music, but I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. And again, if you guys hate watching this on, corporate tech, I don't blame you. Links to my Rumble and my BitChute channels. I also would love to get your opinion. Should I pay the premium amount to start uploading videos to Gab, or are there other platforms you encourage me to do so? But I understand you guys need to actually go and watch it there, because right now, Facebook and YouTube crush all my views compared to any of the other platforms that I upload to. We're literally on Rumble, we're lucky if we get into the double digits on views. But anyways, we'll see you guys tomorrow, and I'm out.